Hello everyone, I'm Bob Nisbet, and this is my reproduction of my talk about artist Olive Fell at the 2022 Montana History Conference. Olive lived in and around Cody, Wyoming from an early age. She was born outside of Big Timber, Montana in 1896 to William Fell and Florence Taylor. Her father moved freight supplies around Montana and Wyoming, and she once told a friend that she was born under her father's freight wagon. The family moved to Cody, Wyoming. Her parents divorced and her mother remarried to Everett Oskins, and the two of them ran the Cody greenhouses and later the Cody flower shop. Olive was the staff artist at the Torch High School publication. The Cody High School class she was in was small, but she had a classmate, Irma do, and there was a joke in her class that went, "What would Irma do if Olive fell?" Another classmate of Olive's was Millward Simpson. He would later become the governor of Wyoming and a U.S. senator from Wyoming. Around that same time, she graduated in 1916. She did her first Yellowstone art, a card promoting Cody as one of the entrances to Yellowstone Park. She attended the Art Institute of Chicago for 1.5 years and later the Art Students League of New York. Here is a self-portrait of Olive in her urban attire, and she is said to have carried a pearl-handled derringer with her for protection in New York City. She spent time at the University of Wyoming, about a year, and was lauded for her contributions to the yearbook. Olive left school, as did physical education teacher and a friend of hers, Amanda Clement, and they opened the Shadowette Tea Room in Cheyenne, Wyoming from 1920 to 1922. Amanda had already gained some fame as the first woman paid to umpire a baseball game in 1904. Olive operated the Pine Needle and Art and Gift Shop in Cody in the 1920s, was involved with the Cody Stampede, and met and married Sidney Quenzel in 1926. An Olive Fell sketchbook survives from the 1920s. Here is a Cook City Bank on the northeast corner outside of Yellowstone Park, and Pilot and Index Peaks, which you can see today from the Beartooth Highway. In 1930, Sidney purchased the 900-acre P-Bar-P Ranch 20 miles west of Cody. They renamed the ranch the Four Bear Ranch and operated a dude ranch there in 1931. The main ranch house burned in 1932 and was a total loss. In 1933, Isabel Haynes of the Haynes Picture Shop Company invited Olive to exhibit her artwork at Mammoth Hot Springs in Yellowstone. Isabel and Jack Haynes gave a dinner in Olive's honor, and her exhibit included 35 etchings, metal masks, and oil paintings. Here are a few examples of her art from that exhibit, more natural examples on the left and more surreal on the right. In the 1930s, after that exhibit, she became somewhat famous, even though it was a depression. She exhibited in Seattle, the Art Institute of Chicago, National Art Club in New York, Milwaukee Museum in Texas, and in California. In 1934, the Society of American Etchers selected For Minds to Know as one of the 100 best prints of the year. Here are a couple of other of her Yellowstone artworks, probably from the 1930s, Bear Feeding Ground and the Old Faithful Geyser. During the 30s, she and Sidney lived together in this small cabin, although they were separated pretty quickly in 1934, divorced in 1937. In this small cabin, she made her art and hand-pumped her water, The telephone line would go down in winter. She slept in a sleeping bag. Her little stove burned wood as fast as feathers. But she loved the birds, and winter was her favorite season. What she said about the winter one time was, "I ski all over the hills, tracking deer, moose, and bear. I sketch dozens of legs, paws, ears, and heads, and I am often marooned for hours on the limb of a tree, over the edge of nothing, trying to catch just the pose and expression I want. I made my best etchings there." Friends would bring her food and supplies, or she would pull them up to her cabin with a harness around her. By 1938, she realized her etchings were too expensive to sell to Yellowstone tourists, so she turned to mass production. In the winter of '38, she made 22 designs and cranked out 13,200 prints on a hand press, which later would sell like hotcakes in the Haynes picture shops. She said, "Getting a new idea isn't anything at all for me. It's repeating the job over and over again to make money out of it that slays me." Her friendship with Jack and Isabel Haynes continued with 2 artworks of their daughter, Lyda. In a 1939 letter to them, she said, "When I see her looking away, I wonder what this new day, new world holds for her. I hope you like the picture. It may be the last I ever make of her. I see so little of her, and she is growing up so fast, she is getting away from me." So in the 40s and 50s, Olive came up with this Little Bear Cub series of kind of cartoon bears. As the card on the left says, baby bears, big bears, bad bears, good bears, glad bears, all kinds of bears. And this is what she reproduced for the tourists in note cards, greeting cards, postcards, all kinds of images that she could mass produce. She built a house on a hill in 1949, which still exists, although it's been remodeled. She wrote Jack Haynes about her park sales and said, "When I get done, I want you and Isabel and Lyda to come over and give me the once-over." Here is a view from her kitchen or living room. In the 1950s, she produced what she called the Sheriff's Posse Advertising and Souvenir Brochure, which she distributed to Cody, West Yellowstone, and Jackson, Wyoming. Although most of her cards were for Yellowstone, she did produce a few for Yosemite, Sequoia Park, and Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State. Also in the 1950s, she made a series of 26 postcards for Yellowstone, including a begging bear and highway panhandler, demonstrating that the tourists were still feeding the bears and being amused by them along the highways, although it's certainly a dangerous activity. Olive also produced tourist form letters where you just had to address the name and sign it, and it would explain the rest of Yellowstone Park for you. In the mid-50s, she also did 3 serigraphs, which are like silk screens, the fringe gentian, sago lily, and Indian paintbrush. The fringe gentian was named the official Yellowstone flower in 1958. Olive also had a kiln at her house and would produce ceramic animal figures for sale in the park. She sold her art through the Haynes stores until 1967, when the Haynes stores were sold to the Hamilton Company, and we have no records of whether she sold her art through the Hamilton stores. In 1970, she sold the 4-Bear Ranch with life tenancy so she could live there the rest of her life. After selling the ranch, it gave her a measure of financial security she had not had during the rest of her adult life. She could make what she wanted. She made oil paintings. She traveled to the Southwest It was a time of artistic freedom. Olive passed away from cancer in 1980 without a will. $300,000 was given to her brother, William. William passed away in 1987 and established the Fell Oskins Scholarships at 3 area universities for Wyoming students studying art or floriculture to honor his sister and mother. Each scholarship was funded with $107,000, and these scholarships still exist today, a family legacy. The best place to find Olive's art is at the Meeteetse Museum south of Cody on the lower floor. There are also some materials at the Park County Archives in Cody and a couple of her paintings on the lower level of the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody.